Greetings from Nashville, Tennessee, where the music is country, the tea is sweet, and the language slow and refined. Allow me to apologize on the front end. My translator couldn't make the trip, so if at any point throughout this presentation you need me to stop and repeat myself, trust me, I will not be offended. Now that we're all thoroughly acquainted, let me ask you a question. Are you comfortable? How those chairs feel? Did you have a nice dinner? Fantastic. Well, if you're comfortable now, that is exactly what you need to be. But if you're still comfortable at the end of this presentation, well, I better give you your money back. Now let's do something here. Sir, would you stand up for me, please?
Well, I'll try.
Thank you. And let's see here. Ma'am, could you switch your pen to the other hand? And ma'am, would you mind uncrossing your legs for me? Okay, great. Now that we are all thoroughly uncomfortable, this is where I want you to remain. Thank you for your participation and your support. You can certainly take your seat. What is it about this word that makes us so uncomfortable? I'm guessing you're thinking to yourself right now, Bo, we were getting along so well. Why did you go and mention the dreaded C word? If for no other reason alone, change is not a comfortable concept for any of us. Not because of what could be, but because it's simply something different than what is in this particular moment. Could you imagine what your life would be if you saw change as a blessing and not necessarily a burden? Or what about an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle? This is a mindset that is completely counterintuitive to our natural instinct. When most of us see this word, not only do we shudder, but our instincts tell us to fight, to resist, to avoid anything other than the familiar at whatever cost it may be. You will never begin to embrace the concept of change until your pain of same becomes greater than your pain of change. At this point, it's appropriate for me to share my personal story. In 1993, at the age of 13, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease is a digestive disorder that manifests itself in pain and inflammation within the digestive tract. I lost the better part of my teenage and early college years to this disease. I was fearful of going anywhere in public that I might not be able to find a restroom. I found myself turning down more social engagements than not for fear of the unknown. Now, surgery was recommended at multiple points along the way. Surgery in my particular case meant the removal of my large intestine. And on the other side, the installation of a permanent ileostomy, which requires the assistance of an external pouch that serves the purpose of waste storage and removal. Now let me just tell you, the idea of that was horrifying enough for me to hold on to my painful present. Any amount of pain, living on the toilet, for me was better than pursuing this surgery. And so what did I do? I resisted. I fought. I pushed back. I didn't want anything to do with it. because it was a violation of my comfort zone. Isn't it funny how sometimes we will choose things that are painful but familiar over those that could be better but are unfamiliar? So I continue to live my life in pain, continuing to turn down social engagements because the thought of surgery was enough to keep me confined to my comfort zone. It wasn't until 2006 that choice was stolen away from me. So leading up to this point, I had lost 13 years of my life. And I'm here before you tonight to say, I should not be here. I should not be breathing. Life, according to Bo, ended on March 30th of 2006. Because on that particular night, my large intestine, it ruptured. And I became septic. And I no longer had the luxury of choice. If I wanted to continue to live, this surgery was my only way out. Now, do not make the same mistake that I did. I understand that not everyone in the room can relate to a near-death experience, but my story is essential to communicate my conviction that change is the greatest blessing that life could bring us. The only thing that we have to do and have to concern ourselves with is how we perceive it, as a blessing or a burden, as an opportunity or an obstacle. Because what I will share from this point forward is what could be, as opposed to what was. Change is the bridge between my painful present and my future. So, this is what could be. And I wanted to illustrate these three primary cases as what we will become known as revolutions in their day and age. The Wright brothers. They told them they were crazy for trying to fly. And can we now agree that flight travel is the most efficient travel in this day and age of getting from one place to another in the quickest amount of time? Walt Disney, they told him to stop dreaming so big. And now Walt Disney is responsible for the dreams and fantasies of so many people in the world today. And then Steve Jobs, well, I think it's safe to say that Steve Jobs accomplished his goal of reshaping the way that we use and embrace technology. So their what could be's have led to our present day innovations, and they have set the tone for innovation to follow. Now, here's my what could be. I hit rock bottom on March 30th of 2006. I had a life-saving surgery that I wasn't excited about having. And as you can probably imagine, the recovery process was long and slow. I was bitter, I was broken, and I wanted nothing to do with the change that rudely interrupted the trajectory of my life. Because keep in mind, life according to Bo, it ended on March 30th, 2006. This blessing that I could not see coming has led me to the passion that I am now excited about living every single day. Now, how did this occur? Early in the recovery process, I was visited by one of my very good friends who had just been to a triathlon. I'd never heard of this concept. Swimming, biking, and running all in the same day? What is that? That's a triathlon. The more I listened, the more excited I became. And my passion was born on that June day in 2006. Now, I had a hole in the middle of my body the size of a crater. I had a new appliance that I had to adjust to. I was in no shape to even think about racing a triathlon, but all it took was an idea. The idea of something greater, the idea of what could be over what was. It was a classic case of mind over matter. Now, I guarantee that's something that we can all relate to in this room, no matter where we are. So I was determined. And my first victory was a walk to the mailbox. And then the week after, it was a walk around the block. And by the end of that first month, I was actually on a bike. I hadn't been on a bike since I was 5 years old. I was determined to get to a level that I had heard my friend describe only a month ago. And so by the end of that first summer of 2006, I actually competed in my first triathlon. 4 months after my surgery, I was out there. I didn't know how I would do. I was a little nervous. Sure, I was scared because I didn't know what to expect. But is that necessarily a bad thing? Living in the unknown, why is that so uncomfortable? It is. It goes against our instincts. But if we can just step out and try without fear of failing, or at least have the build to get back up and try it again, who knows what we could do? Who knows what we could be? Steve mentioned a few things that I have been able to accomplish in the last 7 years, is that I am a nationally sponsored triathlete. My good friend Dave has made the trip with me. He is a teammate. Dave and I raced together for the Timex Multisport Team. I'm living my athletic dream. I've raced 6 Ironman events, which is a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and a marathon. And I do it competitively. And it's a reminder of how close I was to dying. Because my comfort zone nearly killed me. All because I resisted. I fought. My instinct took over and it nearly put me in the ground. Had I known that life could be so good on the other side of change, I would have willingly walked into the surgery and said, yes, do whatever you need to do to change my situation. But then if we could see the effects of change before the change actually hit us smack dab in the forehead, we wouldn't have a problem with it. It would just be the standard. So my life is literally a testament to the blessing that change brings. I went from a sick, near-death patient to a nationally sponsored triathlete who's raced on 4 continents. So triathlon now is my platform. I get an opportunity to share my story because I'm living it. Passion is where you find your purpose. And it's never too late to start, ever. If there's anything in your life right now that you wish were different, why not give it a try? What's the worst thing that could happen? So, making that transition into what it is that we're here to discuss and what it is that Steve does on your behalf is that very similar to the change that I applied to my life, Steve has actually applied to his practice and to his business. So before we get into the value, the differentiation that Steve brings to the table and what truly makes him unique, I think it's appropriate that we consider the current state of the markets. This day and age that we live in, inundated with technology. Information is accessible at the fingertips. No longer do you have to rely on one person to provide you with investment intelligence with which to make an informed decision. Thanks to the World Wide Web, you can access all of the same information that Steve can access. I think we can all agree with that. Technology has rapidly increased the pace of life, the speed with which we move. Who would have thought 10 years ago that one device, that being an iPhone, could place a telephone call, could make a dinner reservation, could text someone, could even tell you how to get from point A to point B. You are literally holding computers in the palm of your hand. So how do we take advantage of technology? How do we use technology to make us more efficient? Well, in our particular industry, we have the responsibility of interpreting market conditions. What is going on every single day in the investment capital markets that we need to be aware of in order to carefully construct portfolios for you. Here's a picture that I found just last week that I thought just did an absolute perfect job of depicting this world we live in. Okay, any Star Wars fans in here? You all recognize that character. Okay, R2-D2 on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Now, you think about the most significant companies in existence today, even over the last 10 years. You see them here: Google, Facebook, Twitter. You guys starting to understand what these companies have in common? Any guesses? Information, internet. Where are they located, guys? California, on the West Coast. Now, the traditional nature of our industry is East Coast. Wall Street, where is it? Where's it located? East Coast. Okay? We grew up on the East Coast. Our business was born on the East Coast. I'm not sure if you all are aware or not, but 3 years ago, the New York Stock Exchange was purchased by a commodities operation. It's only a matter of time before the New York Stock Exchange, along with these companies, are going to exist in the cloud. Cloud computing is operated from the West Coast. Another thing that the West Coast can do, and is doing, anyone ever heard of this website? Sigfig.com. What about this one? MarketRiders.com. Okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. How about Betterment.com? Okay. These are companies that have taken a business model that Steve and I have learned and have been taught over the last 30 years, which is known as modern portfolio theory, strategic asset allocation, buy and hold. Any of those terms sound familiar to anyone? Okay. The fact that that business model is now available through a website is speaking to the commoditized nature of what traditional, stuck in their ways thinking advisors are running into. Now, the application here is that if nothing ever changes, everything remains the same. In my particular case, for my personal story, if I never changed, I wouldn't be here to talk to you today. So, Steve, along with his team, is a perfect example of what Silicon Valley cannot provide. And what that is a highly motivated, well-informed financial advisor of the highest standards that pays attention to what's going on in the market. And how he pays attention to what goes on in the market gives him a competitive advantage of not only his local competitors, but also of anything that any of you could find on the World Wide Web. Steve's partnership with us meaning Dorsey Wright, makes him unique and puts him in a category of very few. Steve has been a client of ours since 2008. And just a quick mention of what it is that we do. We were founded in 1987 as a provider of investment research. We provide a resource for our clients to evaluate and interpret market conditions. so that they can in turn construct and manage portfolios for you that move when the market moves. What did we say before about change? We can either embrace it or we can resist it. But the truth of the matter is, change gives us all an opportunity to become better. And these markets today are moving faster than they ever have. Volatility is at an all-time high. So it's even more important that Steve have a resource that he can rely on, and a completely objective resource for that matter, where all we're looking at every single day is a collection of buyers and sellers to determine the trajectory of prices. Okay, I'm sure we can remember from our economics classes the law of supply and demand. Yeah? Okay, so if there are more buyers than there are sellers in the market, what's the price going to do? It's going to go up. And the same would be true on the flip side if supply were ahead of demand. So we are a very unique resource that exists on Wall Street for those who are serious about differentiating. Steve has embraced our methodology and has been using us since 2008, which I think we can all remember was a particularly painful period of time when it came to our investment portfolios. So Steve sees the value in the methodology and he applies it on a daily basis when he's looking to evaluate what is most appropriate to have for your investment portfolios. Now, here's one simple concept that I want to illustrate. There is such a thing that exists in the investment capital worlds today known as trend following. We all know that prices are going to go up and we all know that prices are going to go down. Okay, so when to become invested and when to become divested are of the essence when it comes to managing your portfolios. So let's use this example. We all can relate or know what we're viewing when we're looking at a track meet or even a swimming contest. Okay? In 2006, Michael Johnson set the men's 400 world record at, 1996, not 2006, 1996, at 43 seconds. One man running around the track in 43 seconds. 4 hours later, the men's Jamaican relay team ran the 4x100, where they're all passing the baton off to one another, in 37 seconds. That's a 6-second differential. Now, there's no disputing Michael Johnson is a fast human being, but when you put 4 fast human beings together and they all run the race together, the outcome is going to be that much stronger. Now, the application to your accounts right now is that domestic equity has been a strong performing area of the market for almost 3 years now. So there are only so many ways that you can invest in domestic equity without losing the composure of the account. Now, through the application of trend following, Steve can receive a signal to alert him to the particular areas in domestic equity that are performing with the greatest strength. So when the strength moves, Steve can move. When the strength passes the baton, Steve can pass the baton. That is the concept of trend following, which Dorsey Wright allows for Steve to identify. And then the last concept I wanted to describe was the term relative strength or momentum. Has anyone heard those terms before? Okay, so relative strength is the measure of one thing against another. We can measure any 2 things or any 15 things against one another for that matter to come up with a ranking system. If all 18 or 19 of us at this particular time were to have an arm wrestling tournament, there would be one winner who would be ranked number 1 according to a win-loss record. Well, relative strength tells us within any given area of the market which particular areas had the greatest relative strength. Relative strength will tell us if Apple is stronger or if IBM is stronger. If Home Depot's is stronger or if Lowe's is stronger. If Coke is stronger or if Pepsi is stronger. This is a tool that Steve uses to evaluate market conditions and how to apply that to your portfolios. So, in conclusion, change is not a bad thing. If we could only see the after effects, it would be much easier on our psyche. Clearly, I had no intention of compromising your physical comfort. After all, I'm not that big of a guy. But what I hoped to challenge tonight was your emotional and your mental comfort. I believe in my heart of hearts that we as human beings were not meant to live in comfort zones. Life is full of surprises. Something along the way is going to force you out of your comfort zone. We cannot control that. But once again, we can control how we perceive it, how we react to it. Our attitudes from this day forward are as, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and it might make me a little bit uncomfortable, but why not go with it? Who knows what could happen on the flip side? If you were to ask me what a triathlon was in 2005, I couldn't tell you. If you were to ask me if I even dreamed that I would be performing at the level that I am today, I would laugh at you. The funny thing about pain is it closes our minds. When we're in pain, when we're in distress, it makes it very hard to see the world around us. It makes it hard for us to care about anything other than what's going on right in front of our faces. If we could only see on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that change, I don't think any of us would argue the legitimacy of at least giving it a try. And when we understand that concept and adapt that mentality and actually give ourselves a chance to fail, who knows how good we could be. Good is the enemy of great. You might be comfortable in your life right now, and I hope you are. And that's fantastic. But something is going to happen. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be a week from now. Something's going to happen where you are going to come to a crossroads. Will you accept, and not only accept, but embrace the change that comes your way? And maybe, just maybe, turn into something that you didn't even think was possible yourself? Or will you throw up your hands? Will you crumble? Will you retreat to your comfort zone and limit yourself from potential greatness? Do not make the same mistakes that I did. Do not put yourself in an emergency situation where your physical well-being, and I know it's an extreme case, but again, that's why I'm standing before you tonight sharing this passion. Because before my surgery, I'm not sure what my purpose was. Now, I'm absolutely 100% confident that my life is filled with passion. And because I've found my passion, I've found my purpose. Thank you.